Now, obviously, on to more serious things. Greece is on fire. The Greek legislature, late last night, their time, when they hoped everybody was too tired to pay attention, they passed this austerity deal, this latest austerity deal with the European Union. And it triggered rioting and burning and protesting all over the place. An observer on the ground in Athens is saying the Greek people have gone to war against the system. They're burning down the banks. There was a report earlier that they've taken over a TV station. Then media's gone silent. What we're seeing here in the United States of America is the corporate media is demonizing the Greek people. How dare they riot? How dare they protest? This is a legal decision by their government. They should just go along with it, and so forth and so on. The reality is, of course, that life for the people of Greece has just gotten worse because austerity is a fancy word meaning you must make do with less so the bankers can have more. And basically, that's, we're hearing the police are attacking journalists. We hear the police are attacking the protesters. And what's really amazing is I don't think those police realize this new austerity deal means pink slips for most of them. But they're out there clubbing people and just behaving. And it's kind of interesting when you go on to the live video feed that is coming out of Athens. And you'll see the online comments being posted. There are people out there saying, those Greek people, they're lazy. They should just work and pay off that debt. They're deadbeats. Obviously these are hired public relations people for the bankers. Maybe they're part of Obama's new truth squad. But there's something everybody needs to keep in mind when they talk about the riots and protests in Greece and the ones that are cranking up in Portugal and the ones they're having in Belgium and the ones that are probably going to be starting up in Italy very soon. We'll be talking about that a little bit more further into the show. The Greek people did not agree to any of this debt. Remember, the previous administration had this little clandestine deal with Goldman Sachs to hide the problem from the people of Greece back at a time when it would probably be a little bit more manageable. And the government of Greece conspired with Goldman Sachs to conceal the scale of the debt, and in the process, the debt got run up even higher because it was just a refi, just kite it forward to the next administration. Now, the Greek people didn't agree to that. The Greek government concealed it from the people of Greece as they made this deal with Goldman Sachs. So what it comes down to is the entire argument to bash the Greek people and force them to pay all of this is this ludicrous theory that the people of a country should pay the costs for criminal and incompetent actions by their bankers and their government. And that, of course, is complete and utter nonsense. We're dealing with the same situation in here in the aftermath of the mortgage-backed security fraud, where the government has said, we're not going to prosecute the criminal bankers, we're just going to transfer the losses onto the people. And so far, unfortunately, sadly, the American people have gone along with this, which means the government, encouraged, will go on continuing to do it. One of the reasons things are so out of control in Greece right now is the Greek people did riot several times before, and every time they back down and say, all right, we'll accept it one more time. And so the government figured, yeah, they'll go for it one more time. Maybe it's not going to happen because this is a death sentence for Greece. And there was, seeing the interviews from Greece directly without the benefit of filtration by the American corporate media. There was this one woman who made this most amazing statement that I think cuts right to the heart of the situation. And she said, we accept the bankers have destroyed our lives. The choice now is, do we spend the rest of our lives working to make those bankers richer, or do we spend the rest of our lives building a better Greece for our children? And that is really the choice we all have to make. The bankers set up this entire disaster, got everybody into debt, then crashed all of our jobs, sent them out to other countries, stole all our homes with this fraudulent mortgage situation to basically create a situation of unpayable debt with which to enslave us, they think. And the choice we have now is, yes, the bankers have destroyed the standard of living in the United States of America. Do we spend the rest of our lives working to make those rich bankers richer, or do we spend the rest of our lives building a new America for our children? I vote children. If anybody's got an opposing view, go ahead and give us a call at 877-342-6673. But I do not agree with the idea that the people of a country should pay the costs of a government that is engaged in criminal behavior, stupidity, incompetence, made deals in secret with foreign bankers, There is an established international legal principle called odious debt, and I think the people of Greece need to basically start looking at that, where the people of a country are liable for debts that are incurred to make their lives better. Better roads, better bridges, better schools, better hospitals. But they're not liable for debts incurred for things they never asked for, like weapon sales. And remember, both France and Germany tied guaranteed weapon sales by the Greek government to this latest bailout. So even as Greece descends into poverty and anarchy, the Greek government is already out there buying new weapons from France and Germany, because that was the deal. And the Greek people didn't agree to that either. So the Greek people need to understand odious debt. The American people need to understand odious debt. We're not obligated to pay the costs for criminal bankers and corrupted government. We have to stand up and say no. There is no freedom without the freedom to say no. And on that very subject, Germany is already saying that this latest agreement doesn't go far enough. Germany's already saying there have got to be further cuts, further adjustments, further actions taken by the Greek government. The ink isn't even dry on the current agreement. The smoke hasn't even cleared from the riots, and already Germany is saying, no, you got to do more. You've got to do more. Now, somebody wrote a very good observation. What kind of a democracy do you have when an unelected international banking agency is coming into a country and forcing tax and spend policies down the throat of that country? It isn't democracy. When the government is owned by a private party, a financial institution, that's fascism. That's what this is all about, forcing fascism down the throats of everybody in the world. And we need to stand up and say, no, this has nothing to do with communism or capitalism. We left capitalism long ago. This is a fascist dictatorship being imposed on us all through fraud and corruption and deception. And the time to say no is at hand. And the people of Greece need to go back and understand Goldman Sachs shorted the Greek debt after it arranged these shady currency swaps to hide the Greek debt. It was all arrived at criminally. We'll be back after these words from our commercials. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. Last segment of our show today. And I'm looking back over in the situation in Greece. And apparently the government of Greece, which is protected by heavy guard right now, you imagine my shock, has announced that they are basically going to resign in March. And there will be new general elections in April. In other words, having done the damage, having passed this austerity legislation, they're all going to skedaddle. They're going to get out of there unless a new government come in and basically deal with the backlash on it. The new government may not get a chance. The word on the streets of Athens is it's time for a revolution, and they're absolutely right. They're absolutely right. The corporate media and the prostitutes are out there trying to say, well, the people of Greece borrowed that money, they should pay people back. The people of Greece didn't borrow anything. It was the government. The government got them into that mess, and they've got this attitude of, we'll just try whatever we want, do whatever we want, and the people have to be made to pay for it. That is absolutely the antithesis of democracy. We've got the same situation in the United States of America. When we, the people, tell our supposedly representative government, do not use public money to bail out Wall Street, and that government goes ahead and does it anyway, they're not representing us. They're spending our tax money without representing us. And in that little schoolhouse I went to in Loudon, New Hampshire, taxation without representation is a legitimate reason to fire the government, and that's where we need to be. We're seeing signs being put up on the Parthenon. People of Europe rise up. We're seeing signs all across Europe, solidarity with Greece. We're seeing national strike in Belgium, rioting in Portugal, probably going to start in some of these other countries as well. Everybody in the world has come to understand the trap of the 11th marble. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, go to the front page of whatreallyhappened.com, and down on the right margin you will see a marble with the number 11 on it. Click on that for an article, because when you cut through all of the economic mumbo-jumbo that the financial reporters use to obfuscate what's going on, it really comes down to a very simple situation. Any 5-year-old boy knows that if you put 10 marbles in a can, you can only take 10 marbles out. But private central bankers are absolutely convinced they can put 10 marbles into a can and take 11 marbles out. And they're absolutely convinced that 11th marble is there, and they will even go to war to get that 11th marble. And no amount of common sense and logic will convince them that 11th marble doesn't exist. They'll just think you're being mean. You're denying them their due for that 11th marble. And that is really the trap of a private central bank. You see, when this country was started, we fought a revolution to be free of a private central bank. And when this revolution when this country was started, when we had the revolution, I'm looking at the Asian markets, the Nikkei is already on the way down. When this country was started, we had the government issued the currency, spent it into circulation for what the government needed. It flowed through society, fueling commerce, and was taxed back at the end of the cycle. Banks were off to one side. They were an optional part of life. You, the American people, had the freedom to choose whether or not you would involve a bank in your commerce. You didn't have to go to the bank. You got your government issued the money, you did a cash-only business, paid your taxes, that was it. Didn't have to use the bank. You could choose whether or not you would borrow money at interest from the bank. And when economic times got hard, people would stop borrowing from the bank, and it was a self-balancing, self-correcting system. Because people would say, we can't go to the bank anymore. We can't borrow anymore. We got to stop. And that would hold it in a stable balance. But when a private central bank is given control of the nation's economy, and all currency enters circulation as a loan from that bank at interest, then you've lost that freedom to say no to the banks. Just to engage in commerce, you are using money that is the proceed of a loan at interest from that private central bank, either to the government, to other banks, to consumers. All money in circulation is the proceed of a loan at interest. You have lost your right to say no to involve your life with a bank. And now the banks want to involve themselves in everything. You know, ATM cards, a fee. You buy a newspaper, they get a penny. You buy your Valentine's Day card, they get a penny. It's a piece of the action is what they want, and you don't have the freedom to say no. In fact, anytime anybody tries to run their life without allowing the bank a piece of the action, they get arrested, they get thrown in jail, they get their assets seized. If you're Muammar Gaddafi, you get murdered in cold blood and your country destroyed. Banks should be an optional part of life. And when this country was started, that was exactly what they were. They were an option. You could choose whether or not to involve yourself with the banks. You've lost that choice. It's been stolen from you. You are a slave to the bankers. And they're sending you out to make the rest of the world their slaves as well, even if you have to die for it. So over in Greece, I think the Greek people are finally waking up to the reality they didn't do anything to deserve this poverty and austerity and enslavement. It was done to them. It was done to them by Goldman Sachs. It was done to them by the mortgage-backed security fraud. It was done to them by the very inherent nature of private central banking that will always create more debt than money. It cannot be any other way. It's the way the system is designed. And it is a trap. It's designed to reduce the human population into permanent state of debt slavery, rule by compound interest. And it is no more legitimate than rule by divine right or rule by chattel ownership of your body. And the people of the world need to stand up and recognize that right now, because the bankers are trying to slam the gate on you as fast as they can. And if they succeed, all future generations will be born into unpayable debt, and the schools and the churches will reassure them, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is the way it's always been. This is the way it always will be. For time everlasting. There are the bankers, and then there are the slaves. And you, sadly, were born a slave. Talk to God about that one. Anarchy's looking really attractive. And you know the really scary thing? More and more people are laughing when I say that. Because I'll go around and I'll talk at the bank, or I'll talk at the supermarket, or the dry cleaner, or the hardware store, and I talk to people because that's how I gauge what people are thinking. I'm constantly out there. I'll say something that's a little provocative, and I look at the reaction, and I see what's going on. And I think most Americans are pretty clued into the reality of where this country has gone and where this government has gone. And I think what's happening in Greece is going to happen here. I know the federal government's preparing for it, but you know the reality is there's only a few of them, and there's a lot of us. And once we lose our temper, and it's coming up soon, it's going to be a long time before it cools down. A rage long in building is equally long in cooling. And Americans have been sitting still and putting up with this crap for a quarter of a century now. And this sign that I just saw in a picture from Athens, one planet, one revolution. I think it really does say exactly that's what's going on here.